Okay.
There we go. And I'm going to start admitting everyone because it's 6 p.m.
All right, let's do it.
Very cool. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Carolina Wheat, Artfare Curator, amongst other things. And tonight on our Thursday interview series, I am so pleased to be speaking to Mr. Rob Carter. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to talk to you.
It is. I was really looking forward to this studio visit interview because, you know, well, and thank you everyone for joining again. I happen to know Rob for the last more than 10 years, maybe 13 years. Not that we've kept in touch all those years, but when I found you on Artfare, and Daniela had gotten you on, I was so excited. I was like, holy cow. And you're in Richmond, Virginia, correct?
That's right. Yes, I'm in the sort of industrial part of Richmond, Virginia, just west of the city. But yeah, I've been here for 5 years now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I know that you studied at Oxford and you're from UK, right? But then you had gone to Hunter College and lived in New York for a little while, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I did my BFA at Oxford, and I taught for a couple of years at a hilariously posh private boys boarding school for 2 years. And then I moved to New York to go to Hunter to do my master's. And then I lived in Brooklyn for 16 years.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
Wow.
So big jump.
Big jump. I know. Well, I think that's right around the time where my partner and I discovered some of your animations, like 2008, 2007, and that you had done an Art Oh My residency, and we had done a video show in our gallery in Chicago, and we just fell in love with the work, and then we kept seeing it, I believe, at a fair. It was at a fair, maybe with mixed greens. And
it could have been at either, if it was in Miami, it would have perhaps been Pulse, but it could have also been with Catherine Clark.
Oh.
I've done fairs with them, so not sure, but I did. Yeah, I had work at Pulse Miami and around that. I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, and I can't wait to start talking about your animations because they're so uniquely Rob Carter, and you can't miss them, and the work itself just is mesmerizing, and I suppose I just want to kind of begin there. I think that you were an artist that worked in a handful of different media prior, but what turned you on to animation?
Yeah, I mean, now I feel like I work in absolutely every different medium and feel like, I've even been making drawings, paintings a little bit more recently, and I'm even casting at the moment. But back then, I moved to New York as a painter, and in fact, in my undergrad, I was like totally obsessed with American abstraction and minimalism, and in some ways, that's what brought me to Hunter. I never studied with Robert Morris there, but the fact that he taught there was like, ooh. So I was painting at that time, but then I started to realize that photography or photographic stuff was just much more interesting to me. And in fact, I was using photography within my painting, and the painting started to become less and less significant. And anyway, I took a video class at that time. And the first thing I decided to do with video was to make an animation. And it was in my thesis show. It involved paper as well, and basically, a series of sort of paper airplanes making themselves and unmaking themselves. And so that kind of thread of like animation just sort of kind of kept on bubbling along until I kind of honed a different kind of way of working with animation and imagery and paper.
Yeah, so the works that we first were introduced to through your work called Seeds, I know that you have like a little snippet on your site or in your hard drive somewhere. Would you mind just
Which one of Reseed?
Yeah, Reseed, excuse me.
Yes.
It
sure, let's
just
see if
start
we can make that work.
Folks know what you're talking about if they haven't seen it already.
Yeah, so Reseed is, well, yeah, it's kind of watched this for a while. Let's see. All right, can you see that?
Yes, looking good.
This is the one you meant, right?
Exactly.
It's perfect timing. Wimbledon is in its 4th day.
Ah. Oh, and this is a Wimbledon Stadium?
Uh-huh. And the so the audio you can hear is actually a very famous match between John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg, with the names taken out, and so I like timed and edited it with these sounds of the plants kind of growing. The idea was to think about grass and its kind of relationship to sport, and in this case have kind of like the lawn of Wimbledon grow and overgrow and take over the stadium, but then for the plants themselves to appear like they're kind of playing a game through the kind of illusion of time-lapse photography. This is the first time-lapse I did, and in a way it was kind of like I started working on stop motion animation using cut paper, and it was quite time consuming, as you can imagine. And so I've been interested in the environment and plants for a long time, and I guess I'll stop it there. It's going to end anyway. I was looking for ways to sort of bring thoughts about the environment and plants into my work, but also thinking about the way that plants move and the way that they animate themselves. Essentially, time-lapse photography is like ready-made stop-motion animation in some ways. So I sort of combined the two elements as a cutout view of Wimbledon, and then allowed the plants to grow and recorded them. It was using a video camera, so it was sort of a crude frame by frame time lapse over the course of about a couple of months. I think it was in my Brooklyn apartment hallway.
Oh, I was wondering. Yeah, I was wondering how long something like that would take. And I know that's a question that often artists get asked, and it's their least favorite question. It's kind of like, well, it took 3 months and 25 years, because my experience.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, these do have the very sort of specific time, and it's a while back there, because that's from 2005 or something. So it's quite old now. So I can't quite remember how long it was growing, but probably a couple of months, and then there's the editing on top of it. But in terms of my interest in stop motion, I think it did very much start with the process And that's always been a kind of strong kind of leader for me. But then ultimately, I think the work has become much more interesting in the last decade through more leading focus on conceptual ideas and some politics.
Agreed. Agreed. And I like the way that you're emphasizing the fact that this stop frame animation is coupled with that time-lapse photography, and how they inform each other very easily. And when you have something that's alive, which your work is so much, the roots, pun intended, of your work is life in plants themselves.
Right.
And I love that, where we're seeing this older work recede, yet the plants drawings are very much, kind of in harmony with that which those decade or 15 years have served this newer work really well.
Yeah.
I know the lead image for the promotional of this even talk was a freeze frame of the plant drawings video, and I was wondering maybe if we could learn more about that and the soy seeds.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Should I show a clip of that first?
Please.
Okie dokie. Let's see how organized I am here. And it's, well,
One of the things I found so compelling about this project slash this work of art was not only its multimedia, so multidimensional, but the almost science experiment in relationship to the Roundup, or the ready Roundup genetically modified seed versus the organic seeds. I wanted
12:15.
exactly.
12:45.
I'll let this run for 1 second and then I'll.
1:15. 1:45. 2:15. 2:45. 3:15. 3:45. 4:15. 4:45. 5:15. 5:45. 6:15. 6:45. 7:15. 7:45.
So as Carolina said, this is it did start as a sort of experiment to
9:15.
chart the movement of soybean plants. Soy is like a really, really important product in the US. In fact, it's the biggest export we have of agricultural products.
11:15.
And I took 2 different soybean seedlings. One was organic, and the other is genetically modified and bought from Monsanto. Let's stop share there. And Roundup Ready, of course, as you said. So I didn't really have a great theory as to how they might compare. I'm not a scientist, but I was interested in visually whether their movements might be different. So I set up this strange apparatus that you could see there, where using the techniques of Charles Darwin, which he describes in his famous book, The Power of Movement in Plants from 1880. I used exactly the same technique as his, except that I had a Sharpie and plexiglass rather than he used glass with soot on it, I think, which you could make marks on, which would allow him to track the movement over time of plants and create a schematic drawing of their movement. So it's exactly the same process. And but I wanted to include myself in this video. I'd previously done another video called The Measure of a Vine that did not have me in it, and that was about the movement of kudzu. So in this, it's kind of like a weird performance or dance, I consider it, between myself standing in for humanity and the plants themselves. And as you watch it, maybe it becomes, the sort of sense of who's controlling who, because I became kind of entwined with this plant life in a way that doesn't normally happen, because I had to mark a point of movement every 15 minutes for 24 hours. So, I didn't go to sleep.
Wow.
It was a kind of ritual. Well, in fact, 3 points. So it was a constant kind of relationship with the plants, where I'm hoping that they are going to move in a way I'm predicting, so that they will create a drawing for me, essentially, that stays within the parameters of my apparatus. And if it doesn't, then it can be a kind of sort of failure, and then I maybe have to start again, which isn't much fun. So I don't have children, but it was, I imagine, a little bit like having a newborn
Sure.
for a very short period. Where it's 4 o'clock in the morning and my alarm goes for the next 15 minutes. You've got like 5 minutes sleep. So then, yeah, so there were these two parts of the video. I did multiples of them, so and chose the best ones. And you see this evolution of the drawing that the plants create, as seen from 3 different angles. So it kind of makes a very rudimentary, in fact, an extremely inaccurate 3D rendering of one plant's movement over time.
Right, and the drawings that you have actually over your left shoulder right now are reminiscent, I know, of some of your soy drawings. But as we were looking at the soy plant themselves drawing their movement, is this work over your shoulder that's in conversation with? Yes,
that's exactly it. Those are some of the soy drawings that then. So there was a video, and then I made a series of 10 or 11 drawings. Well, they're kind of ink drawings of the soy plants movement. So I recreated the rendering based on their movement in the computer, printed them out, and then transcribed them onto paper using pencil, pen, and ink in that way. And but then the ink itself is, apart from the black, which you see on the right one, it's all made of soy. So it's the same plants pulverized in a blender that I made into ink.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so the plants themselves embody and are the drawing, not just of the drawing. They are of their own movement.
Exactly, and so they're unique works, correct? And there's a few on Artfare now, which are lovely. And I question, how do you make that archival? Are you just making sure they have UV plexi in front of them, or are you mixing some sort of guar gum, or I'm not so sure, like how
Yeah.
do you...
Yeah, that's it's a great question. I did a lot of tests and actually got really into it with the previous kudzu project, and because there I was using pen and ink. It turned out that the type of metal of the pen was important as well in terms of the chemical reaction. Basically, you need a mordant to control how it ages, and that can be vinegar sometimes, or salt, or in this case, copper sulfate solution. And that's what I found was the best and maintained the green chlorophyll pigment the best. And yeah, I've tried, I've made test drawings and, taped them to windows in the sun, and
Oh,
they're pretty damn stable.
great.
It's still actually quite surprising to me. So the copper sulfate solution was perfect for that.
Copper
Um,
sulfide, then can you walk into an art store and buy that? Do you have to get it from eBay or Amazon or?
yeah, I got it off. Yeah, copper sulfate crystals. You may have, think back to science classes. I don't know whether any of you out there grew copper sulfate crystals, beautiful blue crystals. Yeah, you can just buy it on eBay. It's a pretty common chemistry
Yeah.
compound. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't need very much of it, of course. It's poisonous, so
Yeah,
don't drink it.
that was my next question. Are you wearing a mask? Pre-COVID mask?
No, it's not even it's not that poisonous.
You're getting your hazmat suit on while you're doing these pulverization of the soy.
No, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I just have to deal with their screams.
Well, I also question the reference to Darwin. And I know in a lot of your work, as you reference sometimes political, you have engaged in a lot of critical thoughts on colonialism and certainly UK's role in the mastermind of colonialism. And
yes.
I'm just curious, why are you referencing Darwin in that work, or what did it mean to you to do this experiment with, his influence attached?
Right. Well, in some ways, so the initial influence again came from the process. So a long time ago, I found a copy of The Power of Movement in Plants, and in there are all these drawings that look like mine. I mean, they're not the 3D ones, but some of the schematic ones you can find on my website. I don't know if I have one handy. And I thought they were really interesting, and then I read more about them. And then it kind of seemed to sort of fit very well with my interests in our relationship to plants and trying to understand plant time and in terms of climate change, time, and how we perceive threat or future, or the idea of patience or actually seeing something grow is all very significant. And so the method of recording that Charles Darwin used and his son, I think by that age his son did quite a lot of it, and is very kind of patient and engaging and committed to trying to quote unquote see the plant move through drawing. And then I'd also been working with, as you saw with Reseed, some time-lapse photography, which is, if Darwin were alive now, that's how he would be looking at plant time. He'd be using time-lapse photography. So I wanted to merge these two, this new and old technology that both, allow us to kind of engage with plants, but still at the end of the day, they kind of seem to be beyond us, certainly as a society, to really understand our relationship to the natural world in any meaningful way, particularly based on what's happening right now with the climate crisis. Well, some of us get it better than others, put it that way.
Yes. Yeah, and I just questioned Darwin as a hard stop only because of his racist beliefs and his incredible survival of the fittest kind of
well, he's that's I don't know. I don't think he was. I mean, he was a man of the 19th century, so he wasn't like. But he was. On his earlier voyages, he wrote quite eloquently of his how shocked he was about the treatment of native people in and around Ecuador and that part of the world.
Sure. I mean,
so he was
a lot of time in the Galapagos. I remember learning about and sure,
right, exactly.
and these are writings that I have not read, so
no, but I think it's really interesting because the survival of the fittest idea is still like super, significant and valid, but has been, he opened this can of worms and he was terrified to open it. He didn't want to release that book because he was, he believed in God, and he had a really hard time with the idea that what this would mean to humanity and to the church, and the people would not like to hear this.
They still don't like to hear it.
They still don't. But then some did in the most perverse and disgusting and extreme, like
sure.
The Nazis, who took this idea of natural selection to the, to the nth degree, which is so I think that Darwin sometimes gets wrapped up with a lot of that, which he obviously couldn't have foreseen. However, I am really interested in these super, white, middle or upper class British entrepreneurs and scientists of that period who are so kind of like continuously influential and, and then deeply kind of problematic in terms of understanding our current world. So,
well,
so I think it's very,
the spin.
What's that?
The spin from natural selection and evolution and all of those things, certainly
right.
I can absolutely understand it. And I guess this would be a perfect segue too, to if you are able to, I remember you had a shorter video, I think it was even sponsored by Puma, and it was the caves that references the Nazi regime and the Third Reich was. I know it was a little older though too, but it might be kind of a nice segue to introduce some of this paper, photographic paper animation stuff. If you
sure, yeah, I really like that video, and it's it was basically it was for Puma. It was sponsored, but it was for was it? I'm having a blank on the event. It was for a World Peace Day. Is that a thing?
Okay, yeah.
It's a long time ago. And so I'd recently visited Austria and visited an extraordinary town called Ebensee, which is built right on top of a labor camp. And so to take on this topic, I wouldn't normally have done so, but this commission sort of gave me the opportunity to do so. And I still think it's interesting. It's abrasive, and I think it still works pretty well. It's actually I mean, do you want me to show the whole thing? It's 3 minutes 39 seconds.
Sure, it's so stunning. Yes. I mean, I don't know if anyone out there is interested in seeing it. I think you would enjoy it, guests of this meeting.
Okay, I'll put it on. Let's see. I haven't seen it for a little while, so.
I mean, films for peace. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an extraordinarily beautiful place with this lake called the Traunsee, and it was a very moving place. Basically, it's a smallish labor camp. A lot of Poles basically were worked to death there, and they were towards the end of the war forced to dig out these huge tunnels into the mountainside um, to take on what was to be Hitler's kind of last ditch attempt to get into kind of ballistic missiles at the end of the war, which never materialized, so they were never finished. But the tunnels are still there, and it's just weird. The very racist mayor of the town, and who was elected mayor, they rebuilt this neighborhood right on top of the labor camp. Just they didn't leave they left the mass grave, and and to get into the town, the little village anyway, you have to drive through the gates. Yeah, it's just mind blowing.
I mean,
Austria is a complicated place.
yeah. I believe it is.
Yeah.
We had a conversation about Vienna just the other day. Nothing wrong with Vienna. We were just talking about galleries in Vienna, galleries in New York.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't like to speak too much for the Austrian people, but they weren't forced to deal with Nazism after the Second World War in the same way as the Germans, but and they probably should have, would have perhaps been good.
Well, I think Austria has a very complicated history as well, Syria and other things, and the Balkans and we don't have to go there. I want to see more Ralph Carter animation.
Okay, you don't want to talk about the Viennese purges of Jewish people throughout the centuries.
No, I mean, incidentally, I refuse to get a genome test. Big brother, the whole nine. However, members of my family have, and so they just tell me like, "Hey, Carolina, by the way, blah blah blah," and I had my whole childhood and through the stories passed down from my ancestors and otherwise, I've been told that my great grandfather came from Austria, fled the war, and Jewish, and da 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 da. And then my brothers all get their genome test back, and they're like, "We're Syrian." That explains it. Everyone's like, "You're not German." The American conundrum of like, we'll never be American unless we're outside of the country. We're all these other things other than that. But that aside, the work, the animations and what you're doing, I think it's also, the socio-political constructs that come from that work, would certainly also inform works like The Visitors, and how the land and man-made structures have taken over landscapes of beauty and awe, and just kind of the mark that not only man has made, or humans have made, but also those visitors have made in relationship to colonialism and other things. I'm curious whether or not we can maybe talk just briefly about that work, because I know it's a 20-minute work, but I'd love to hear more about your intentions to show how you have planned to show it, and and maybe a clip of one of them.
Sure. Yes, it's my longest animation, and I was very lucky to spend two weeks on the island of Mallorca.
Mallorca.
It's based on that island, which is a rock in the Mediterranean, basically a large rock, large island, absolutely stunning. but it has a very, very long, history in terms of, Neolithic people being there, and always kind of been in the middle of, whatever's going on in the Mediterranean, whether it's the Greeks or the Romans, or, or more recently it's been, the British were there, of course, they've been everywhere. And but then also it's a very interesting, like, climate and geological formation. There are wildfires. There have been an interesting German who was kind of a rebel prince, who was a rebel environmental prince, who spent as much time as he could there. I guess he was Habsburg, and wrote, phenomenally about the island and flora and fauna. We have this extraordinary record thanks to him. So there's lots of kind of layers to the island as a sort of, even though it's an island, as a symbol for all other parts of nature and humanity all over the world. So I wanted to kind of combine all of those ideas of nature taking over, taking back, humans taking back, destroying, building, rebuilding, creating things of beauty. And then there's also like an invasive palm weevil, which is destroying palms. So there's a sort of layer of that taking back, the beauty of the island, and sort of throw it all together in a kind of in four sections that describe what I've loosely, I think, see if I can remember, breaks down into kind of ideas of native, exploitation, nature. What's the other one? Do you remember?
Oh, I just number 4 was
I'll have to make it's okay. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, in a way, it builds on those themes anyway. But I'll show a clip. Maybe it'll help me out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have enough historical references and relationship to places that I need to have my own notes, because I can't remember after a few years.
Right.
My brain is not what it was.
Well, these works are so accomplished too, and I know that you had intended for the 4 works to be in a 4-channel room. So, and I can really imagine them in that almost conquest of a space. It makes a lot of sense.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's divided into 4. I mean, it works okay in succession, one after the other, but I mean, there is a challenge to having multi-channel installations displayed in galleries, and so I've done that in the past, and it's often frustrating because they can't be shown in the way I'd like. So I decided to make this one more kind of flexible.
Yeah,
so it can go either way. You're welcome. Okay, let's see. Here it is. Is the sound okay? Was it coming coming through all right? Yeah.
Coming through. And the sounds, I can't wait to talk about this one especially.
Okay. So that's from the very end of the video. I have another clip if you want to see it, but and it mixes up various different locations. But the primary thing I did whilst I was in Mallorca was to document the hell out of it, mainly with photography, and but also to buy. There are lots of places to buy vintage postcards there, and so I bought lots of them and tried to run around the island for 2 weeks, re-photographing the same places all over the
Yes, I was
place.
going to ask, where are you sourcing these historic images? And I wondered whether or not, did you go to the library, or did you do anything other than purchasing old postcards?
I did some research, and I had some connections there who were able to help me. But most of the images come from postcards, actually. I think a couple from books. Um, I forget, but yeah, mostly from postcards, which I quite liked ultimately, because they are these strange souvenirs that we feel compelled to buy. I mean, they made more sense in the past when people used to send them. But yeah, I used to be very into collecting postcards when I was a kid, but I'm not sure why really. They mostly ended up in a drawer.
Rob, it's so, just kind of jumping off the cuff here, the idea of the postcard in relationship to the visitors, that if that was predominantly the source material as a visitor yourself, as someone that's on the island that is not native to the island, wouldn't that be the exact way that these foreigners would come in and, with or without money, or access, and that is how their communication was made relevant, or this is how prior to the telephone, certainly this is how folks began to find out about Majorca, besides just sailors and other peoples that were able to travel there. I really appreciate that, the kind of
exactly. Now, and other works I've done have focused very much on tourism. And Mallorca is a wonderful example of a place. I mentioned the German, the Habsburg prince. So obviously he has lots of money, very privileged. But there's been all sorts of other kind of visitors over the years, and more recently, my fellow Brits go there in their droves to get absolutely drunk off their faces. And some of them don't see any of the place. It's just a beach and a bunch of pubs, which do appear in the video as well. So that's something that's an ongoing interest to me, is the neo colonialism of tourism.
Yes.
Which I think is fascinating. I don't, and the package, cheap package tourist industry is wonderful in some ways, and cheap flights and stuff within Europe, it's allowed people with less means to see the world, or see parts of Europe. But there is this fascinating sense that we take part of us with us, and we want some of home when we get there. And so I also did a project in Benidorm, which is even more famous for British holidaymakers, where I photographed as an animation, but I also went and photographed as many pubs and chip shops as I could. And so I have it's a slideshow of about 200 different pubs and restaurants which cater to British and German tourists.
Incredible. And that was actually presented as a slideshow, correct? It's like
that one, yes, exactly, yes. That one is somewhere up there. I have a slide projector with the carousel on it. It's old school.
That is it makes perfect sense with the chip shops and the pubs, and a way for a foreigner or a tourist to feel comfortable and not out of their own country, but
Mhm.
in
Right.
an entirely different nation or culture.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a balance, of course, between, uh, what a vacation, what a holiday is for, and sometimes one goes to a city on vacation, and it's wonderful, but it's exhausting because you're like, wow, we gotta go here, we gotta go here. It's not a rest. Um, so this is all kind of intertwined with other ideas of the modern world and capitalism and what we want out of life. And and I'm doing the same myself. Actually, this summer, next month I'm going to Greece
Oh,
to a Greek island. Yeah,
which one?
not for work.
Good.
Eos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go to the beach, but I feel
Favorite place to swim.
yeah, it's just beautiful. But I feel having been so kind of tied up with some of these concepts, there's a sense of guilt.
I
But then
understand
there's also yeah.
You're right.
Well, and actually taking flights and everything else, but let alone the massive privilege that we have of the vaccine here. Yeah, it's fascinatingly complicated. But then there was also a crazy absurdity of my project in Mallorca. I worked nonstop to go all around to get to as many parts of the island as possible, and so I didn't have time. I didn't go to the beach once. I forced myself to put my feet in the Mediterranean once, but that was it. So, which is also, in retrospect, crazy.
First world problems there, Rob.
Exactly.
Oh, poor thing. Oh man.
It was such a chore. Oh. Yeah, exactly. Very much.
One of the
First world
things
problems.
I'm dying to ask you, which actually I think is kind of a real challenge for artists that make animations, that make videos, is how the hell do you sell these? And do you have a market for collectors? I know there are. However, if you we've got about, oh my gosh, we got like less than 10 minutes, but if you would have any advice for those listening or watching this interview that are interested in selling or trying to have a marketplace for videos and animation.
Yeah. So it's weird and fascinating, I have to say, and I've been very lucky, and I've had some success with certain videos, in particularly the ones that are been quite accessible, like Metropolis, which has been shown a lot, which is kind of the story of Charlotte in stop motion animation. But so there are collectors out there, and it's and there are growing numbers of them. But I feel like I'm actually slipping behind on this question already with because I'm not involved with blockchain or NFTs and that sort of thing. But I'm not really sure what the future kind of holds for it. And so I go back and forth. The model I work within is to make animations that then get shown in a gallery, and then they are very limited edition, as if they were, a limited edition photograph, and therefore they have a very high price tag. Well, not that high in the grand scheme of things, but pretty high, and they fit in with that kind of model of the art world. The other option, of course, is to distribute them, much more conventionally in terms of, DVDs and unlimited editions. And I think the reason that one perhaps someone like me wouldn't go with that is because I want to be free to just, make my own content. But I don't, in terms of, I don't want to be my own distributor if if we're talking about thousands of, discs, although now it's rather simpler because it can be all digital. So I'm not sure, not sure it's helpful. I think it's a fascinating moving target, to be honest, particularly given what happened with COVID, what is happening with the pandemic, which kept everyone at home looking at screens. So they're both like we're doing now. People are both a bit screened out, but also it's their lifeline into art galleries and that sort of thing. And say my videos would work better than an oil painting over Zoom. So I actually feel like we're at a point, and this goes for art galleries in general and for art fairs, where I'm kind of eagerly waiting and watching to see what kind of evolves over the next 5 years. So yeah.
Well, right. And, I think you answered that, in terms of a personal experience, the best you can, because, obviously technology is advancing itself every 6 months, if not every month. And, the way the distribution happens, whether it's DVD, Blu-ray, or jump drive, or, through WeTransfer at this point digitally,
right.
And then, of course, you've got the World Wide Web, and in relationship to emphasizing this limited edition, creating a video like Metropolis, which did you do when you were at McCall? Or
I did
was
it
that
just after I left?
Okay.
Yeah, I made some, whilst I was there, I made a series of photographs and a video about NASCAR. But, and through that process, I got to meet people who were involved with the city, and they offered me these aerial photographs to work with. So I made that as soon as I left.
And that was an additioned work.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And McCall, we know, and certainly Charlotte, North Carolina, has versioned into banking NASCAR mega city. And, it makes it pretty likely that folks would buy video and say, I'm going to show this on my screen. Yet, it's kind of like determining how many.
You'd be surprised there.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say that I don't think anyone from Charlotte actually has one. I've been working on that for many years, but yeah, the people who've collected it are from other places, which is interesting.
Makes sense. What just to follow through, like the limited edition is key, and then not having it on the interwebs anywhere. We talked to other video artists like yourself that are very interested in selling, and kind of, are frankly younger and digital natives. And so it doesn't make sense that it wouldn't be free for everyone, or it wouldn't be on YouTube, or, make a private link if you're going to share it with folks, because you don't want, and particularly right now, I'm working with a very young curatorial assistant. She's 19, and she just told me yesterday, in relationship to a video artist, she said, it's just so easy to steal it all, even with password protected Vimeo or whatever. She goes, I have a program that I can just rip it. And I'm like, oh, let's be careful, with intellectual property and copyright issues and so on and so forth. But having that actual hard copy given to the collector, in addition to ensure the fact that they're the only one that's going to have it besides yourself, an exhibition copy or an artist proof or something like that. It actually, just all that to say, it's been a little challenging talking to younger artists about their video art videos for sale in the art world market.
Right. And the other thing is that within, goes for everything. There's a very complicated hierarchy of price structure, which doesn't always make a lot of sense as you're sort of starting off. But yeah, I mean, the same thing though could be said now, you know, of photography. You know, it's even somehow that conversation doesn't happen quite so much, but to copy, you can genuinely rip off a you know, a photograph very easily, and then go and print it. I think where I try and maintain control is with the highest quality of it,
Right.
and that is something that is interesting in terms of like both presentation and people's experience on a screen. You know, how important is it that it's you know 4K, and you know, and so in terms of, so in a way, like building up to like a higher and higher quality gives a little bit more kind of control of the actual final product, because you can, you know, a 100 gigabyte file is so different from a 100 megabyte file.
Yes.
And in terms of what you actually have and experience. But
and then we had also kind of addressed briefly just how you're presenting it and how you want the collector to present it in their collection,
right.
in their home or in their space, wherever they're doing with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not just in a desk tour, but you know.
No, exactly. I mean, I mean the best ones I've had, I mean, and it kind of can live on, you know. I did want to say one great thing about working in this format is that, as you mentioned, like transport is so easy. So I've been able to show some of these things all over the world because there's no transportation fees. So that's great. But yeah, the videos that live on I have a video in one or two hotels, and as far as I know, they're on a monitor and then just going 24/7. So I've had some connections through that. And then on the collector front, you just never know who you might, if you get lucky. I have one wonderful collector in San Francisco who bought a video called Cult, which was, how long ago is that? About 9 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's 2-channel, and they had the means to build a viewing room that was able to watch it. So they have a space that allows them to watch both 2 and single channel videos, which is, you know, amazing. But you know, again, you know, first world problems, kind of, this is, we're talking about at this very elevated end of the art market, and I'm starting to, I'd say, drift away from that more and more, I think, because it just, well, it's not working terribly well for me, you know, and I'm also, I think I'm more interested in getting work out there on a, you know, a more approachable level in some ways, whether it's, you know, having shows here, community events, yes, or working on a slightly smaller scale, and having things like that are on Artfare, for instance, which are more manageable in scale, more
traditional media, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, folks want ink drawings. Folks would love to, you know, potentially buy a pulverized soy,
right,
sulfites fixed
yeah,
drawing. Well,
I'm not sure there'll be a lot of those in the future. So, you know, get them while they're hot.
I love it. Oh my gosh. And that's, you know, we've gone over, it's 1904 here. So I'm going to say thank you. It's been a lively conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, if not longer.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I hope I didn't say anything too idiotic.
I know. I mean, am I going to get canceled tonight?
Yeah, right.
Okay, you're ready. But
Yeah.
Rob, it really is such a pleasure, and I can't wait to continue working with you in the future. Thank you for being on Artfare. Thank you for opening up your studio to us and sharing your incredible work. Bravo.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
And thanks everyone for coming. I'll see you again next week.
Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.